couple minutes late. We'll call the January 13th, 2021 Cascade Township Board meeting to order. Everyone in attendance, are all those on the board in attendance?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone absent?
Like
okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, Article 2. Steph, Assistant Manager Fast, can you help us through that? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
One
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty and
justice
justice
for all. Thank you. Article 3, presentations. Slightly last minute, so it wasn't on the agenda. But first, we wanted to address the issue of the drastic increase in vehicle theft, especially at night, unlocked vehicles. It's clearly an issue that we are working on. We'll continue to meet with law enforcement and figure out how best to address these concerns. But tonight we have Deputy Diepa, our local deputy, here to talk directly to residents. We'll try to get him in and out at the presentation section to save him some time. And then also first, an issue came up, an elections issue. And
Excuse me?
County,
Can I stop you just a minute, Grace?
yeah,
Article 3 is approval of the agenda.
I thought it was presentations.
Article 4 is
approval of the
presentations.
agenda first.
I apologize. Sorry. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Was that Ken?
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
Okay, thank you. Agenda approved. Sorry about that. Article 4 presentations. We have Deputy Diepa, and then we also have Kent County Elections Officer or Director, Mr. Jared Uzarki. We're going to let him go first. There was an issue that came up at the last meeting that we wanted to give him the opportunity to directly speak with those involved, residents. So go ahead, Mr. Uzarki, and
yeah, so you guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
My last name is Uzarski. I just have to clarify that because it gets slaughtered all the time. So Jared Uzarski is my name. I am the Kent County Elections Director. Thank you for having me here today to represent Kent County and this ongoing sort of discussion on our November 3rd election. I got to let you know, Clerk Lyons couldn't attend tonight due to schedule conflicts, but she does send her regrets. So it's me here today. And today I'm here to support a letter that we submitted to the board just yesterday, and it was last minute. It was a response to some of the concerns brought to you, actually brought to us from one of your residents surrounding a board meeting, your last board meeting that occurred on December 16th. So it was brought to our attention that another resident had inquired with a few questions that have unfortunately for us become far too common since the days immediately following our November 3rd election. We felt it was necessary to properly address these concerns in writing to help clear the air of uncertainty for some of your residents, other residents of Kent County, and whoever else may have witnessed or could witness the recorded meeting that is available online. So as you guys could imagine, a tremendous amount of work leads up to each election. And this last election was definitely not an exception. There was even more work put into this last election. We've got our regular day-to-day activities that occur ahead of each election, but the challenge this time was misinformation or disinformation. And that has been a constant challenge for us. And it was prior to actual election day, but really started hitting us hard after the election. And that's why we're here today. We want to let you know what some of the process is. That process includes years of work, both on the front lines in preceding elections and behind the scenes, to ensure that we have the best process and tools to accurately and efficiently administer elections here in Kent County. And this work was done at all levels: township, county, state, and federal. So the resident had asked Clerk Slater a few questions, and we felt her responses didn't properly put your resident at ease, and we felt it necessary to put in writing some of these explanations. So that was included with this letter, and I know you've shared it. It'll be part of the minutes and whatnot. And there's a really good letter that we use to respond to a lot of the questions. Some of the main ones are the Sharpies, or vote flipping, or fractional votes. I mean, we could go all day. You guys have seen these in the news. You've seen them on social media. It's been nonstop for us, and I'm happy to be here today to continue to give you a level of comfort in what we've got going on, not only in this past election, but how elections will be administered and managed in the future. So we don't intend to change a whole lot. We've got a pretty good process here. It is important to note that Kent County has a long history of working well with Cascade Township Clerk Slater. I do myself also. I've been here since 2017, and I haven't had any real issues here in Cascade Township. We have no reason to believe that this good work won't continue. Clerk Slater has proven many times that she's willing to make adjustment to her procedures to produce a cleaner record and better efficiency for her elections. We're all part of this team. So township, county, state, federal, all of us are players in this team. All these levels are really important. What it also includes, one of the team members is the vendor that we chose to help run our elections. That's Dominion Voting. As we're all probably aware, Dominion has become the target and victim of disinformation since this last election. We have not lost any confidence in their product, and I have full faith in continuing to use the valuable tools that they provide us. It's sort of easy for us to reach this level of assurance because at the county, we're very familiar with all parts of the process, and that includes this lengthy certification process that they pass to become a viable option for the state of Michigan. So our days, as I said, since this election have been literally consumed with responses such as the ones that occurred on December 16th. And we continue to offer insight on how many of the debunked allegations are simply false. This letter will go into detail on many of those allegations. I'm here today to address any of the board's concerns or any questions you might have surrounding our past election, things that may have been brought to light in news or social media or whatnot, and also give you, explanations how we can continue on and be confident in our products that come from our hard work at elections here. So with that said, does the board have any related concerns or comments regarding some of the questions that were brought forward at your last meeting?
Mr. Uzarski, where would, I guess this is more for Clerk Slater, where would a resident find the letter that you mentioned?
After the minutes are approved, it will be included in the packet for tonight's meeting. So it'll be on the website. We've attached it.
Any other questions for Mr. Uzarski? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I have not.
Thank you for addressing it thoroughly. And then in the interest, we do have a public comment section following this. You are welcome to stay if residents have questions or concerns, but I'll leave that up to you. And at this time, we'll open it up to the public just to try to get Deputy Dieppe out of here too, and you're both taking time out of your evening. So
yeah, in that regards, I want everybody to know that our office is always available. You can reach me through email, phone calls. Plenty of people can find our information, but I'll give it to you now. So any members of the public, if they have specific concerns or questions, or just want to have a conversation on whatever they hear in the news surrounding the election, or any of the many details that I could go over to help residents understand the many layers of our election process and how complicated it can be. Let me just put it here on record what my information is. So you can reach me. You can reach the Kent County Elections Office at 616-632-7650. And if you're not comfortable with a phone call, you can always reach me via email, and that is gerard.uzarski@kentcountymi.gov. So we'll take any questions or concerns. We've taken the whole gamut since the last in the last 2 months. So we're prepared to answer anything as long as you come at us with an open mind. I'm willing to have a civil conversation and explain any parts of my somewhat boring job. Sometimes it can be boring, and some people get tired of hearing about it. But the last 2 months, nobody's really been sick of it. So we're here. Our door is not closing, and we're available. So that's what I want to say to everybody here in Cascade Township, or anybody else who may be watching from other communities.
Thank you, Mr.
Jared.
So if we get angry residents, we can feel free to direct them to you on any issue.
As long as it's elections.
I got it.
I have your phone numbers too, so I can send them back your way.
We're gonna play. We'll bounce them back and forth. Thank you. Again, public comment comes next. Up to you whether or not you stick around, but thanks for addressing the issue directly.
Yeah. When you say next, it's at the end of the meeting, right?
It's following. We're going to bring Deputy Dieppe in,
Gotcha.
and then in the presentation section, and then there's a initial public comments, and then comments at the end.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then Deputy Dieppe, can you, one, thank you for coming, and two, can you walk us through what all the residents have on the front of their minds about what's been going on, petty theft and that kind of stuff?
You got it.
Thank you. Thanks for making yourself available.
Of course. So I put together just a little PowerPoint. Can you guys see it just fine?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys letting me come. There's been a lot of questions that arose with the larceny from vehicles and some of the vehicle theft, and we understand and we share that concern. So I'm happy to kind of come here today, address it with the board, and then obviously I'm open to answer any questions following as well. So with these questions, a lot of it arose from some of the social media apps, Nextdoor being the most popular, with some misinformation that's been posted on there, and I get it. When we have crimes like this happening, rumors start flying and people get concerned. And so I've had several people contact me directly or contact the township and inquire about what's going on, what kind of patrols are we doing, whether we're doing them at all, and try to get some numbers from me and kind of make it right. So I wanted to put this together. This is simply a map of all of the vehicles that were broken into. The red dots are the vehicles that were broken into, and the blue cars are actually the vehicles that were stolen. Now, mind you, this is a 1 month period. This was put on from December 2nd of 2020 all the way through until the 6th of January of this year. And I backed it up a little bit just to kind of show the trend that we had. The biggest of the 2 days, the rash of the break-ins came in the 26th and the 27th, just after Christmas of 2020. But I started hearing numbers as far as 60 to 70 in just one night between the three townships. And I wanted just to kind of set the record straight that unfortunately, that's not even close to the number that we had seen in the 1 month period. We've only seen a total of 30 good break-ins where they actually physically went into the vehicles and stole something, and 9 of those were where the vehicles were stolen. So the day that we started getting the rash of break-ins, we had approximately about 10 per day. But the other thing we did not add into here is not the attempt. So whether or not somebody called and said somebody attempted to get in my vehicle, because I know obviously when everybody started speaking about this, we had several incidents of people saying that we have our exterior surveillance or our Ring doorbells that caught people trying to get into our vehicles. And although we welcome that and we have documented that, I didn't want to add that into our totals because it didn't necessarily represent a victim of that type of crime. So if we move on, what we do know about these break-ins is that they're only entering unlocked vehicles. And I put in here that there's an exception at the fitness centers because just recently and over the past week, we've seen a break-in at the YMCA off Burton near Kraft. And then we also saw one at our neighboring agency over in Kentwood at the MVP at Burton and East Paris, where the windows were actually broken with rock and that the vehicles were entered and wallets and purses were stolen. But those are the only 2 exceptions that we saw, and one of them is not even in our area. So of all the 30 that I did mention, including the 9 of the vehicles that were taken, every one of those were documented that the vehicles were left unlocked, and the vehicles that were stolen, the keys or the fob itself was actually left inside that vehicle. What they're targeting is purses, wallets, and loose money. There are a couple of different complaints where they took additional items, but for the most part, they want that fast cash. There were a few vehicles that actually were rummaged through that expensive headphones, laptops, a phone, those types of electronics that are usually, it's the typical items that are taken, they're left behind. And what they're doing, from what we learned, is when they find a wallet and they get debit cards or credit cards, they're immediately taking that to some of the local retail stores in the area, and they are purchasing gift cards. And these guys are smart enough to know what the limit at those types of stores are, typically 500 or 200, depending on where they bring them. They put it on prepaid Visa gift cards, charge 2 or 3 of them to that card, and then they drive away. And those Visa gift cards at some stores are not trackable. So they toss the debit card or the wallet and purse out the window as they're driving along, and they just made $1,500 off somebody's debit card. As far as a time frame, we've looked at putting extra patrols on the street. So with that map, we learned that they're targeting vehicles between midnight and 8 a.m. And that's pretty common. They're doing it and when it's dark outside. And the other thing we do know, based on all of the reports and the Ring doorbells and the other surveillance that I'll show you here in just a second, is that these are most likely juveniles. And that's common. That's typically the crimes you see for a juvenile, is to break into vehicles. Through our intelligence at our agency, we believe, and we strongly believe, that this is the same group that are involved in all of the recent cell phone store robberies and the dealership break-ins. Additionally, because of additional intelligence, we believe all these individuals are coming from the city of Grand Rapids to our kind of more rural areas, and where we feel comfortable, and we're and very well we should. That's why we live in these areas. But they come here knowing that we don't lock our vehicles and that we're easy victims and targets. The reason we do know that they're coming from the city, because most of the vehicles that had been reported stolen are found, whether it be hours or a day later, just abandoned down in the city. So they're just being used for joyriding. And unfortunately, as I'll show on the next slide, they're actually using those vehicles to target other neighborhoods and commit other crimes. But this is the most important for the public to know. This is kind of what we're up against. These individuals, although young, they're very intelligent. They're gloved up. They have full facial coverings, wearing masks and hoods. The vehicles that they're using are stolen, and if they have a plate on them, when we type it in, it comes back stolen into the registered owner, and obviously that's no good to us. Or they're just not having any registration on the plates at all. Now, the thing that we have to go up against too is that this for us is a risk versus reward. So we could take a complaint that somebody gets their wallet stolen out of their vehicle, get behind that vehicle, and these guys aren't stopping. We've been in more police pursuits this year than we have in the last 10 combined. These individuals know we're not going to chase them, and as hard as it is for us to not chase these individuals, we have to weigh the risk versus reward. Is it worth me chasing somebody that probably doesn't even have their own driver's license because they might be 14, 15, 16 years old, going 110 down Fulton and risking the other general public for a wallet? I mean, it's hard. It's difficult for us, but unfortunately, they're aware that we do terminate these vehicle chases because it's not worth us putting the public in danger. One other thing is that the juvenile punishments. Unfortunately, we don't have strict juvenile punishments, and it's for the right reason. I'm all for not punishing juveniles and keeping them out of juvenile detention and giving them a second chance. But unfortunately, what we have learned as we've taken some of these cell phone store robberies is that the same players are involved from previous break-ins, one being at Barrack 616 a few years ago. That individual was a juvenile. He spent 2 days in jail, and unfortunately, he was back out. Now, as an adult, we have to start thinking about it. We can understand, unfortunately, if these guys are only spending 2 days in jail and they're making $1,500 for breaking into one car, it's fast money for these guys. I completely understand why they're doing it. The last thing here is that once we catch one group, and we have caught several of these vehicles, we've chased a few of them where they've crashed and it was a good outcome. But once we catch one and people start getting comfortable, then a new group comes in. The most recent was just this past Monday, we started getting a vehicle that was driving around Cascade. We had it go down in Gaines Township. We had it go up into Plainfield Township, and then it ended up back into Cascade where they were successful getting into one of our cell phone stores. Now, we were able to get behind that vehicle. It did flee from us down in Gaines, and we terminated that pursuit. And they're so bold and brazen that they went to several other stores knowing we're probably going to be checking these areas. Now, one of the individuals that we caught over just north of Plainfield in Grand Rapids was actually a 13-year-old male. I mean, it's unfortunate, but word spreads from these kids when they're successful and they make this fast cash. And then we have a whole new group that comes in. Now, from the pictures on the right-hand side, the one on the top, this is the kind of surveillance that we're getting. And I'm not trying to blame people for giving us grainy video, but anytime we get some exterior video surveillance or Ring doorbell cameras, this is kind of what we're seeing. That's the comment. And that's the best one of maybe 50 that we have received. So you can just tell, yeah, there's a figure there. And we could probably say it looks like a black male, and that's about it. The one underneath at the bottom, that's a phenomenal photo. And this photo was taken of two of the suspects that broke into a vehicle. And we found a receipt from after they stole that car inside of an abandoned car down in the city. Now, we tracked that receipt to one of our local retail stores, and this is the video surveillance that they gave us as they're walking out. Now, the guy on the left, there's a potential chance that if somebody saw that, they may or may not say, that looks like so-and-so, but it's difficult for us to prove it. The guy on the right, that's almost impossible. That is inside of a store. He's got that hood up the whole time, mask over his face, and they are smart enough to even wear gloves inside of that retail store. So this is what I encourage everybody. This is what's referred to as lock it or lose it. We've been pushing this for several years, and ultimately what this is about is removing valuables from your vehicles, locking your vehicles, and report any suspicious activity. So I've given the assistant manager, Stephanie, from the township, I've given her these flyers. I've sent these out to several neighborhood watch groups. I post this pretty consistently on our social media, and I'm happy to send it to anybody that would like it. But ultimately, what we're trying to ask is to lock your doors. We've had several Ring doorbell cameras that were sent to us, simply proving that they were trying door handles on vehicles, and if they're locked, they move on to the next house. They were avoiding it completely. One of the big things that we started doing when we had the break-ins at the dealerships is they were breaking through windows, entering, and then they'd always just leave keys sitting out on the desks of all the employees. Well, they'd grab those keys, go out and hit the fob, and now they're stealing cars from a dealership. So we went in there and said, hey, let's get some heavy duty locks or safes and put these in the back room behind lock and key so it prevents them from doing it. And you know what? That stopped pretty quickly. They are no longer breaking into these dealerships anymore. So simply enough, hiding the keys, putting things away and locking it up completely, it prevented those dealerships from continuously getting hit. If we can't lock the doors, or if you forget, simply enough, keep the valuables out of sight. Whether you stuff it under a seat or whether or not you lock it in your trunk or remove it from your vehicle completely, anything other than leaving it on the seat or in plain view of anybody walking by, it can turn something into a crime of opportunity. If somebody had no intentions on stealing it and now they just walk past your vehicle and see it, well, people get sticky fingers that way. So a lot of the things that we see at the MVPs and the YMCAs is just that. They target those knowing that people leave their valuables in their car going to or from work. And that's why we're seeing them risk breaking windows to enter those cars. Aside from that, all of the neighborships of the 30 that we had in the past month from that map that I showed everybody, not one said that their window was broken or that they even attempted to do so if they had it on surveillance. And cars now, the reason they're not doing it, most have alarm systems on it, and they're getting enough success out of stealing from vehicles that are unlocked that they're not even taking the time to break windows and risking it anymore. A couple more, simply enough, lighting is huge. If you have any external lights on your house or motion sensors, have those on and working, keep everything lit up. Parking vehicles, if you could pull them up close to your house or put them under some of the public lighting on the street. It's always a big deterrent. And then cameras. I mean, even though we're not getting great video, the more cameras you have up on houses, it's always a deterrence if people see those. Lastly, I put on here, be a good witness. Obviously, we try to avoid confrontation. We don't want the public to run out and scream at people. By all means, it's your property. Do what you need to do. But be a good witness as far as if you see something suspicious, try to get license plates or make and model, or don't pick out make and model and simply say, hey, it was a maroon sedan and it had the front hubcap missing and a sticker for the YMCA in the back left hand corner. I mean, something distinguishable about that vehicle. So one big thing for me, unfortunately for us, we don't necessarily have Nextdoor app. And like I said, we do work direct with some of the neighborhood watch groups. But the big way for me as a community officer and for the sheriff's department as a whole is disseminating information off our Kent County mobile app. So this is kind of new, and this is something that we're trying to push and use a lot more, but we need some feedback. Some of the benefits to this app is it allows for that immediate dissemination of information. I don't have to wait until the next day and get a Rolodex of all my contacts for some neighborhood watch groups. I can immediately pull up on my phone and post what's going on. You can select what groups you want to be a part of in there. More specifically, if you live in Cascade and don't want to know about anything happening in Plainfield, that's perfectly fine. You can receive alerts from the groups that you want to be a part of. You can contact directly with me, send me some questions, or if you have concerns and just want to express it, it's a way for you to do that. And a lot of the stuff that I will post is going to be some reminders. It might be some tips or alerts of current and ongoing crimes specific to the area. So for example, if I see a new scam that's going on, I might post it on there and say, hey, this is kind of what's going on. But the larceny was a big one. And that's something that I wanted to post immediately and let everybody know, just to be a little bit more diligent. Just quickly, some additional features. It does have a traffic crash monitor system in there, emergency notifications if the sheriff's department wants to give you guys some information quickly about an emergency going on. If the sheriff has anything she wants to specifically put on there, and then commendation. If you have contact with a law enforcement officer from the sheriff's office and want to give them some praise, because we're not seeing enough of that right now too, you're welcome to do that. So overall, I just kind of wanted to let everybody know what we're doing now. The sheriff's department, we take this very serious. I know a lot of people are saying this isn't the crime of the century, and people were apologizing for calling saying, hey, my debit card was stolen, and they act like it's not a big deal. But I mean, as I just kind of explained to you, we've had several victims, 30, even though it's not the 60 or 70 that everybody was speculating immediately. That still is too many. We have a lot. And because they are involved in all of the break-ins and the cell phone store robberies, the sheriff's department as a whole, we do take it very serious. We have a specific task force that's looking into and designated all of their time to the break-ins and the robberies at the cell phone stores, as well as the car break-ins. We are making and drafting up a way to get extra patrols out there. We have our crime analyst that's running names of specific subjects that have been in trouble with us in the past, more specifically juveniles. and taking all of the video recordings and the photographs we're receiving from all these different break-ins, and we are picture by picture, just flipping through their social media, trying to just match clothing. I promise everybody in here are working diligent on everything, and we hopefully will continue to catch these guys. But most importantly, there are ways and there's preventative ways for us not to be victims. So simply, again, I can't stress enough, locking your vehicles. And I even tell people that if they're in their garage, I would still suggest locking it and removing those valuables, I'm sorry. But if anything comes up after this is my contact information. This is my email. I respond within a day. I'm very quick on email. But by all means, any questions, concerns, please just go direct with me. Those social media apps, we don't necessarily monitor next door. So unfortunately, when things get said on there, I can't help the public by saying this is what's going on and it's not that. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you, Deputy Dieppe. Any questions from the board? All right, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm sure you're going to get questions, emails or calls.
That's no problem at all. Happy for it.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
You're welcome.
Next section, Article 5. This is public comments. It's tricky because I'm new and a lot of you are not, and I'm trying to balance efficiency with also getting as much public input as possible and making sure that the public and the board's priorities are aligned. So in the interest of time, I'm going to stick to the public comments at the beginning, not specific agenda items that we're voting on, but then at the end also that public comment section. The one area that I'm going to deviate, unless there's a problem from the board, is just consider Township Board strategic plan. I think that's a matter of public interest, and as long as it's not getting too late, I think it's a smart idea to allow residents to comment before the board votes on that specific issue. Any discussion from the board?
We aren't gonna be voting on anything other than to get RFPs to do the work on the strategic plan. So I'm not sure what the public could add, but it is, we have to get the information from whoever's going to do the work, and then we put together the strategic plan. Now probably wouldn't be the time to take public comments, but because there isn't really anything we're doing but moving forward with it and getting RFPs from companies that will do the work for us.
The thinking that I had, and this is, in some ways it's small, but in some ways it's really important. The agenda item itself says consider Township Board strategic plan, and it's really not the board alone. This is the Township strategic plan, and the only reason I wanted to open it up, and we can get into this at the time when we're discussing it, but the order and how we worded the RFP, the public comes in at the very end after staff, previous plans, that kind of thing. So without opening a can of worms, I think it's appropriate to see if there's any questions or concerns with the public. Assistant Manager Fast, you want to see if any hands are raised?
Thank you so much, Supervisor Lesperance. If anyone in the audience would like to speak, please address Supervisor Lesperance. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please note our meeting is being recorded, and you can simply raise your hand, or if you're joining us via telephone, you can press *9 and your microphone will be unmuted. We do have some raised hands. Supervisor Lesperance.
Okay, thank you. I can't see them right now with the way the iPad is, so.
Yep, I will tell you who we got. Our first resident is Keely Shea.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Shea.
Hi, thank you so much. And I have another resident here with me as well.
Hi, this is Molly Miller.
Hi, Ms. Miller.
Hello.
Thank you. We are wondering if Uzarski is still available, because I was the one that had the questions the last time.
I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Hi, Jared. This is Keely and Molly.
Hello.
So thank you. But first of all, I want to say I heard your comments about Sue Slater, but I want to say that I truly, and many residents that I have spoken with, appreciate Sue's honesty and her answers when we had questions regarding the election. I really think that was not a fair commentary on her responses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vase. Ms. Miller, did you want to add anything or?
No, I'm just here as a participant and to just watch this process happen.
Thank you. We do
Go
have
ahead.
another, I do have a question though for Mr. Uzarski.
Okay, wait, sorry, Ms. Vase, I'm not trying to, sorry for the awkwardness. I'm trying to, go ahead and ask the question and then I'm trying to.
Okay, sorry.
You're
Thanks.
stuck with a new supervisor who's trying to keep the meeting under control. So ask the question and then we'll send it to Mr. Uzarski.
Okay, thank you so much. So we were, regarding the election and the voting, we were able to get on the Access Kent website and see the audits that were done for all of the townships. Are you familiar with that?
Very much so. I conducted them.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So we were able to look at Cascade, and I have a screenshot of it. Am I able, or I have the website pulled up. I just think it would be helpful for everyone to see the audit that was done in Cascade and the concerns that were raised. Are we able to share that on the screen?
Ms. Keely, can we try to balance getting public comment, but at the same time sticking to the agenda? So,
Okay.
you know what
Okay.
I'm saying without saying it? Sorry.
Yeah, so you don't want me to question what the audit, because the audit, for example, explained that there were fewer absentee voter apps than voters, and the remaining applications were not present at the time of audit.
Yeah, I can address that. This is actually common. This is not unique to Cascade, but as a local clerk is doing their work, you know, these ballots are coming very fast and furious. So anytime there's an absentee ballot application out there, it's on file, right? So when the ballot comes in, the clerk is trying to separate those ballots that are still out there versus the ones that have been marked as received. Leading up to election day, there's a tremendous amount of ballots coming in at the very last minute, and that includes up to 8 o'clock on election day. So it's not uncommon for us to get a whole pile of applications. In those applications includes some of these ballots that weren't returned, others that were. So for audit purposes, we're not separating those to get down to the nitty gritty. There's some flaws in the state's audit, and I intend to work with them to help improve some of their checks that they're going through. This is actually one of them. So I hope that answers your question. I see what you're referring to, number 30. I have it in front of me, but we counted too few apps compared to voters. That doesn't mean those apps weren't in another file. So if Sue Slater were to give me all of her applications, including the ones received, for ballots received, we could sit there all day and separate received versus not received and match them with envelopes. But that's not what this audit does. It's cut and dry. It's just a requirement. Do we count the same number? Yes or no? All of these questions are very simple, yes or no. And for this, we had to say no.
Thank you, Mr. Uzarski. And Ms. Shea is, thank you for your question.
Hi,
And can we, go ahead.
hi, Grace. I have, this is Molly Miller.
Oh, hi.
And I have one more question for him. We have several questions, but we're going to narrow it down to just one more. But everybody can
Thank
go
you.
to the website and take a look at this audit. If they could please do so, it would be important, I think, for our community. But this, my question is number 19, and it says the seal number recorded in the poll book different from what was recorded in the test certificate. The tabulator was removed for service and replaced with a different one. Can you explain that to us?
Yes. So leading up to each election, every jurisdiction undertakes what's called a logic and accuracy test to test for program accuracy and make sure it's performing correctly and the voter's ballot will cast the way they intended it. In this situation, it was explained to me, and this is, I wouldn't say common, but I'm aware of this happening in other places. A machine had failed after they sealed it. So they sealed the memory cards in, the machine failed, it required service. Leading up to an election, it's real common to just switch equipment. So that's what happened. There's a certificate that gets sealed with the test deck, and that testing usually occurs weeks in advance of the election. So when this equipment was switched, that certificate that remains within the test deck was not updated with a new seal information. So the seal match, it was all verified on election day from the poll book, but it didn't match this document that was produced a couple weeks prior to the election.
Thank you, Mr. Uzarski, and thank you, Ms. Miller.
Grace, may I have one more question? This is Molly.
Can you keep it like, sorry,
Okay.
it's not that we don't want to hear from you, it's just
No,
that.
I know. I completely understand. One more question.
Okay,
How did the community decide on the Dominion product?
Well, it wasn't the community's decision. There was an RFP.
Whose decision was it?
It's ultimately the county's decision.
The county's. So which county would it be?
This would be Kent County.
Okay. And then whose decision would that have been?
Ultimately, it would be the county clerk. Clerk
And-
Lyons would have the authority given to her by a legislature to make that decision.
Okay.
okay, thanks, Molly and Keely. Ms. Uzarski, thank you for your time also. I know it's a big issue for a lot of people, and I'm not trying to cut short. I just want to keep this meeting moving on. So sorry to cut
And
you off.
we do have another raised hand, Supervisor Lesperance. Craig Merlin has raised his hand as well.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Merlin.
There. Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to comment not on the elections or on the police safety issues, but on the issue of what constitutes appropriate minutes, which will be considered as part of the agenda, the consent agenda for the next thing on the Article 6. Obviously, from the minutes of 12/16 that are being taken up as part of the consent agenda, my comments from the last 3 meetings have been unsuccessful in stopping my comments and public comments more generally from being misrepresented or omitted, leaving the entire meeting context unknown to any future reader. Strange as it may seem to some of you trustees, I am honestly trying to help the board and Township generally in taking steps to reverse the cycle of mistrust and frustration that I have felt and sensed in a number of other citizens with whom I speak. My comments are well-intentioned in the hopes that good common sense will prevail and additional transparency and openness occurs to help assure that citizens, that you, the board members elected to represent us, listen to us. To put the matter bluntly, I think that the citizens have a right to expect the minutes to be a fair and even-handed summary of what happened at the meeting of its elected representatives. I have numerous examples of where that has not happened, and will send a list of those to Supervisor Lesperance. But just to take the 12/16/2020 meeting, the minutes accurately reflect that the meeting lasted 2.5 hours and yet contain no mention of what was the cause of the lengthy meeting, in part due to the budget discussions and to the opposition of a majority of the board to the appointment of someone who seemed to me and to some other commentators, all of whose comments were ignored in the minutes, a more qualified candidate as the board's ex officio member of the Planning Commission. But rather than rehash those issues from December 16th, I would hope the Board of Trustees could agree on the concept that the minutes be written in such a way that they are, and I take this standard from the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks, fair, even-handed, and judicious summaries of every meeting of the board. And that they are certainly not misleading, as I assert that minutes going back years have at times been. And perhaps to memorialize even that concept at a future meeting in an actual policy. The standard that I'm suggesting is admittedly more than the statutory law requires, but certainly no more than the law of common sense demands. Doing so, I hope, would be a positive step in being transparent and rebuilding some level of trust with the citizens. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Merlin. Thank you. Any
Like-
board members want to respond to Mr. Merlin's comments?
I'd like to speak to that, please. Mr. Merlin, thank you for your comments. I don't know if you're aware, but as we are taught at Clerk Institute, in recording minutes of a meeting, which is clerk responsibility, minutes are to summarize what was done, what actions were taken, not what was said. We're actually told not to record entire conversations. A set of minutes is strictly a noting of actions taken on business. We can put who spoke, a summary sentence, but we're actually not supposed to put in entire conversations. That's not the purpose of that particular document.
Thank you, Mr. Merlin. If you want to respond quickly to Ms. Slater, please do so.
Again,
Assistant Manager, go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Merlin.
I know what the law requires, Clerk Slater, but I don't think it requires or allows someone to put in some comments, i.e. reference to my comment on the elections, and not the bulk of my comments, which had to do with other parts of the discussion at that evening. So what you're doing is you're selectively omitting and including comments, and you are, through the 3 meetings where my comments have not been fairly presented, have excluded the portions of my comments which have been to some degree directed at processes that your office does control, in the sense of you include 1/3 of my comments on the lower design plan. Those are what I call misleading minutes. And I don't think you're taught at clerk school to hand out misleading minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Merlin. Anyone else on the board want to respond to President Merlin?
Timmy would like to talk.
Go ahead, Trustee Nordic.
This is exactly what I was going to go with. I thank you for your comments, Mr. Merlin. I had noticed in the minutes myself that they were very, very vague. When Ms. Keeley called in, she had a good lengthy question, and it just was recorded in the minutes that she had question of the election. No response, didn't go what her question was. When I go to the Planning Commission minutes, they're very detailed. You know exactly what the person was asking about, or the subject is. You know exactly what their board member questions were and the response to their questions. And I would just like to take our minutes up to that level, obviously knowing that you don't have to do word for word. But if somebody were to look back on this meeting 8 months from now, they'd have absolutely no clue what we were talking about by looking at these minutes. So what can the board do to help the clerk's department perform like the planning commission is doing with their minutes?
The planning commission has a completely different purpose. And those minutes are more detailed by design because of the matter they're discussing.
Clerk Slater, what does the Michigan Township Association recommend as far as clerks preparing minutes?
That we record what was done, not what was said, actions taken.
Bare bones? But does it encourage
Yes,
minimal minutes?
yes.
And do you know why it's different for the Downtown Development Authority and Planning Commission as opposed to this Board of Trustees?
I do not.
Personally, I think it comes off that the board is one, not interested, and two, not transparent. I remember recently, 2 months ago when I was a resident, it was frustrating from my perspective. I would like to see the clerk's office add some more details, and I think it might help to ease residents who might start to think that we don't want to hear from them, or that their comments aren't important, or we don't, that they have 2 times per month to talk about issues directly with the board.
Supervisor Lesperance, Craig has raised his hand again. I don't know if you are going to allow him to speak again or not.
Because it's a relevant topic and we're doing okay, go ahead, Mr. Merlin.
Now I'm unmuted. The only comment I'd like to make is that the standard that I suggested, which is fair, even-handed, and judicious summaries of every meeting, was a standard that I picked up by reading the PowerPoint presentation at the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks in 2017 as a teaching session on what the minutes should reflect. That's why I thought, and I agree with Trustee Nordhook, that minutes not only should provide context, I would also suggest that they are helpful to the board when defending its actions as being proper exercises of their duties of care as board members, having written thousands of sets of minutes over the years.
Thank you, Mr. Merlin. I would comment that I don't think our current minutes are fair, even-handed, and especially judicious. And I think maybe as a board, we can respect Clerk Slater's authority over the clerk's office, but maybe get a little bit more input from Township Council, or at least talk openly about the substance of the minutes. Any other comments, public or board?
There are no other raised hands at this time, Supervisor Lesperance.
Thank you, Assistant Manager Fast. Moving on to Article 6, approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Shipley
makes a motion.
Second?
Second, support.
Any discussion about the items listed in the consent agenda briefly?
I'd like to go back to the minutes of the last meeting and just get those filled in so that I know what Ms. Keeley was speaking of, her question. There were other issues on there where Ms. Keeley actually asked Clerk Slater for qualifications for that planning board. None of that's in the minutes, her response. And then where I voted present in the minutes, it says that I voted yes and I did not. So I would think I'd like that stuff cleared up.
Thank you. Do you have a motion? Maybe remove the,
You
Remove
can't
the-
do that. You have to, who made the motion to approve?
I did.
Then you'd have to agree to that, or there'd have to be amended motion, and then we'd have to vote on that separately. Two different motions now, unless Sue wants to change hers. Parliamentary procedure.
Clerk Slater?
So is he referring to the planning commission?
Yes.
No,
Oh, no, the vote.
I'm referring to Ms. Keely's comments about the planning commission to you, or questions to you. None of that is in the minutes. And her comments, her actual question about the election and a response is not in the minutes.
It is in public comments, number 11.
Yeah. Very, very vague. It just says that she had a question. Doesn't say what it is, which I think would be helpful going
There's an
forward.
error too, as far as the voting for the planning commission ex officio member. It
Yep.
counts, it references that trustee Nordhook voted a certain way. He did not, he abstained from the vote. So at a minimum, that needs to be corrected before I would recommend approval.
So to my memory, he said present, not yes.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes,
Okay, we
correct.
can make that change.
Thank you.
I continue to support with a change.
Take a vote.
Motion, just to clarify, so the motion on the table is what?
To approve the minutes.
With the change of what Nordhook's vote was.
Do I have a second?
Yeah,
We
you
already-
already have. That's
We already
me.
seconded it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone nay, against? Article 7, financial actions. Is there a motion for item 1, payables, payrolls, and transfers, November 2020?
Ken?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Approval of item 1. Item 2 specifically, financial statements. Motion?
For approval.
Second?
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? The motion is approved. Thanks for your patience, board members. I know it's frustrating. You've got a brand new supervisor who's learning Robert's rules, and it will get better. And I do appreciate your focus on efficiency. It's a hard balance, but I'll get better at this. I appreciate your patience. Article 8, there's currently no unfinished business. Article 9, new business. So item 001, 2021. Consider recommendation to broadcast township meetings and community news on Comcast cable channel. I'll do the brief introduction since it was, I drafted and wrote the memo to the board, but it's pretty self-explanatory. In an effort to make sure that we are communicating with as many residents as possible, that it makes sense to use as many different modes of communication as possible, especially in light of this pandemic with people being stuck at home, and particularly older residents and residents who may not use the internet as their primary source for information. So it's pretty straightforward. Ever since the township entered into an agreement with Comcast to provide local cable and internet, the the township has had the ability to take advantage of broadcasting information and meetings on the local cable channels. And I just recommend that we do that now. It's ideal in that I didn't put a cost in there because as far as we're aware, there is no additional cost. Whatever equipment is needed was already purchased with CARES funds when the Wisner Center was updated to allow for hybrid meetings. So no specific cost, although if there is an unexpected and significant cost, obviously that would require board approval. But at this time, the only issue is taking advantage of what we had. And in the area on the side of fiscal responsibility, no hair and makeup, but we can just go like this. Any discussion or questions?
Shipley's got a question. Hey, Ben, didn't this come up a couple of years ago that we took it under consideration?
So my understanding is that is correct. However, I wasn't here. So the last time the township board discussed this would have been prior to 2013.
We really don't have any details of to costs or commitments or anything like that yet.
So our assistant township manager, Fast, has been researching this project along with Hunter from the communications team. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steph, is that as long as we're not trying to broadcast anything live, we have the ability to rebroadcast our meetings with the equipment we have now, whether that's providing them with the copy of our Zoom meeting or once we are able to resume meeting in the Wisner Center, the copy of the meeting that we are going to produce from that. Is that understanding correct, Stephanie?
Yes, that's correct. And I have verified several programming times that would be available so that we would be able to let residents know that our board meetings would be regularly broadcast on a Friday afternoon and I believe a Tuesday morning. And yeah, we would be able to do that with no problem. We would probably be able to do that with this meeting if it is approved.
So no cost at this point would be additional, possible additional cost maybe to go live stream meetings? Assistant Manager Fast?
If we continue doing Zoom meetings so that residents can join virtually as like a hybrid meeting, we wouldn't be able to use those cameras to broadcast live to a cable channel and to be hooked up to the Zoom. But yeah, I'm not aware of any additional costs, no.
Thank you.
So as long as we tape delay on whatever times GRTV allows, we don't have any cost associated with that, right?
Correct.
I would move to approve.
Wait,
Question.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Trustee Nordhook.
So we would be able to also include Planning Commission, DDA meetings, all of them play throughout the week for the people at home?
Yes, that's my understanding. Assistant Manager Fast, can we get your feedback on that?
Yes, Trustee Nordhook, we would be able to secure times for those. I don't have a commitment from GRTV as of tonight for when they would be, but it's my understanding that that's not a problem.
Would we also be able to scroll community events and different things going on in the township?
Yes, moving forward, we would be able to work with them to provide whatever content you felt was appropriate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Manager Fast. Clerk
I have a
Slater?
question. So who's going to manage this?
I believe because we're already on Zoom, we're already doing it. We just provide the footage to the local cable channel. But Assistant Manager Fast is working with. She would be better in a position to comment. So
once the MP4 file is downloaded from Zoom, the communication team would transfer it into an MP4 on our YouTube channel, and we would use that same file and just put it in a Dropbox link to the cable channel.
So that would be done by you and Hunter, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who seconded the motion?
Shipley,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
All those in favor
I,
Aye.
and anyone opposed? So the motion is approved. Thank you. Next item of business, 002-2021. Consider Kent County Urban County Cooperative Agreement. Manager Swayze, if you don't mind walking us through this.
Excellent. Thank you, Supervisor Lesbrun. So this is a program that the township has been involved in since the mid-90s. It's a cooperative agreement with Kent County and the other Kent County communities, with the exception of the city of Grand Rapids right now, for the acquisition and distribution of Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds, and Home Investment Partnership Program, or HOME funds. So the funds from those programs are generally used to provide programs and services to assist our residents as well as other residents in Cascade with low to moderate incomes based on federal guidelines. So Cascade Township doesn't currently have any low to moderate income census tract areas. And what that means is that, that when the census is taken in Cascade Township, there's certain tracts. And if there's an entire tract in its entirety that has an average low to moderate income based on the federal regulations, there's additional programs through CDBG, especially, that those funds can be used for. We don't have any low to moderate income tracts, but because these programs, such as the home repair and rehabilitation services and the HOPE network, apply to individual low to mod income people rather than census tracts, this program allows us to have access to the funds for that. So we were notified by Kent County that the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, is requiring an update to the existing Urban County Cooperative Agreement. So if you had a chance to review, I put both the proposed agreement and the existing agreement in your packet. There's really only some small differences. So there's a minor adjustments to clarify text, and there is one additional paragraph that now appears in the proposed agreement. And that paragraph reads, "A unit of general local government may not sell, trade, or otherwise transfer all or any portion of such funds to a metropolitan city, urban county, unit of general local government, or Indian tribe or insular area that directly or indirectly receives CDBG funds in exchange for any other funds, credits, or non-federal considerations, but must use funds for activities eligible under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended." So in the packet, I included the letter from Kent County requesting the updated agreement, and both the proposed agreement and the existing agreement. You had a chance to take a look at the letter. There's a couple things they point out in there. So during the last 3-year cycle, which was 2018 to 2020, Kent County received a total of $8.1 million in CDBG fund and home funds that were able to be circulated back into the community. HUD also awarded Kent County an additional $2.5 million from the CARES Act to be used for CDBG programming over the next 6 years to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus as well. So as I noted previously, there's no low to mod income census tracts in Cascade Township, which means that we're generally not eligible for project-based CDBG funds due to the lack of those tracts. However, by maintaining the relationship with the county through this agreement, our residents will remain eligible for those countywide programs, such as the transportation services through HOPE Network and the home repair rehabilitation services. So in terms of financial considerations, maintaining the membership in the Kent County Urban County Cooperative Agreement really does not have any direct financial costs to the township, and of course will allow some of our residents to remain eligible for those programs. So I do want to say that there is technically an opportunity cost in there. So if we choose to join the Urban Cooperative Agreement again, we're actually then do not become eligible to apply for those direct appropriations through programs such as the small cities or the state CDBG programs. However, as I've mentioned a couple times, due to our economic demographics, whether or not we're eligible to apply for those are irrelevant because we end up not being eligible for them due to our economic profiles. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but staff is recommending that the board approve the Kent County Urban County Cooperative Agreement and authorize it to be executed on behalf of the township.
Thank you, Manager Swayze. Any motions?
I move to approve the agreement.
Support.
Any discussion? Manager Swayze, the only question I have, does this at all affect the township's residents with a PFAS concern obtaining funds or anything like that?
No, this would not have any eligibility for PFAS related issues.
Thank you. All those or any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is approved. Next item on the agenda, 003-2021, consider Township Board Strategic Plan. Any discussion? Oh, Manager Swayze, thank you.
Great, thank you. So as part of our 2021 budget, funds have been budgeted to develop a new 4-year strategic plan for the Township Board. So it's anticipated when this is done that our strategic plan is going to incorporate elements of our Township Master Plan, our Township Parks and Recreation Plan, our Downtown Development Tax Increment Financing Plan, our Township Needs Assessment and Facility Study, and all the other mid and long-range planning documents that the Township has. So if we choose to go forward with this process, the selected consultant will work with the Township Board to ensure the strategic plan accurately reflects a common vision and direction for the community. So it'll end up being an integral tool utilized by the Township Board and staff to ensure that there's proper alignment with the Township Board's vision for the Cascade community, the staff's work to achieve said vision. So additionally, the department's work plans, budgets, staff assignments, capital projects, and efforts will all be revolving around the strategic plan. So I provided you a brief synopsis of what the schedule would look like. So if this is approved by the Township Board, we'll issue the request for proposals on January 18th, and those proposals will be due back to the Township on February 15th. The Governance Committee will be responsible for evaluating the proposals and making a recommendation to the Township Board. And the Township Board will be responsible for awarding any contract that may come out of this at their March 10th meeting. We anticipate the project will begin in March 15th and that the project will conclude on or before August 31st, 2021. So I included in the packet the proposed RFP to select a consultant and a copy of the last strategic plan that was adopted by the Township Board as well. So the strategic plan can be an invaluable tool for the Township. But with that, there are a host of different perspectives, models, and approaches that can be utilized to develop a strategic plan. So instead of the Township dictating what the strategic plan process is going to, and ultimately what it's going to look like, the RFP is designed to allow the consultant to pick what they think is the best model and process that they recommend, given their understanding of the Township. And then, of course, we'll have the opportunity to review all of those recommendations. Township Board will actually choose which one they think best suits the Township. However, no matter what the model and the proposals, no matter what the model is that they recommend, the proposals are expected to include a certain scope of work. So there has to be listening and input, making sure that they conduct Township Board and staff input sessions to develop an understanding of the key challenges, opportunities, and constraints facing the Township. Existing planning document review. Again, we want to make sure that they're looking at all of the current planning documents of the Township. Public input, make sure that they coordinate and lead a public input process to include all the stakeholders of the Township. They'll be required to draft a strategic plan and design the strategic plan, which will include a review and development of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, review and development of a vision statement, a mission statement, priorities, goals, and outcome measures, and develop a broad work plan to help us achieve those stated priorities, goals, and objectives. and then review and validation. Once they're able to develop that, they have to obtain input from the township board and staff to ensure it's a proper reflection of our interests based on the process that we go through. And then document finalization. The township strategic plan has to be in a document suitable for both electronic and physical distribution. Again, as I mentioned, public input is going to be a key component of the study. As taken directly from the RFP, Cascade Township Board is committed to gathering as much public input as possible during this process. Bidders are encouraged to include as much public input opportunity as possible through several different channels, whether it be open house, survey, charrette, etc. But I do know that the proposal should reflect the current pandemic climate and should be flexible based on the ever-changing pandemic response. So we try to make it very clear that public input is a very important part of the process. So issuance of the RFP have no direct cost to the township except for staff time related to that issuance. So there's money for this project budgeted both in the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 budgets. However, I'm recommending at this time that the proposed budget for the study not be disclosed to the bidders to ensure that the proposals developed relating to completing the scope of services rather than meeting a budget. So we don't want the proposed consultants to nuzzle up to a number just because they can. So with this, I'm happy to answer any questions that the Township Board may have regarding this process.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald?
Yeah, hey, Ben, you really lay out the scope of work really well for the potential vendors to go through. Well, one thing that we've talked about over the years that's not really highlighted, I'd like to know if we could add, it's just identifying potentially underserved populations. And we've talked for years about doing things for teens and or potentially seniors, although there are lots of different avenues through YMCA or church organizations that have things for seniors and as well as teens. But is that something we could kind of slide in there? And one of the things that we'd like the vendors to look at is, are there any underserved populations? And we've talked, like I said, when we've talked about the skate park or skating rinks, we've talked about doing things for teens, but never really identified that kind of, and I thought it would be nice if we asked the vendors to make sure that they look at not just the township in general, but look at maybe, like I said, underserved populations.
Yeah, so I think that's a great comment. I guess from my perspective, I would anticipate that to be actually part of developing the strategic plan rather than the consultant doing that. So I would expect, as we get into this input process with the board, the staff, and the public, that there would be an expression from us that we want to identify the underserved populations and create things for them to do. So I could see that coming out of the strategic plan. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be in the scope of services.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's in the plan. Because one of the charrettes that we did, we had some involvement from teenagers, which was great because we normally don't. It was really good to get their input.
So I think one thing that would be appropriate is just to expand that public input paragraph that says we expect the consultant to devise a plan to reach out to all stakeholders of the township, including underserved.
That'd be great. That'd be great. That's kind of what I was getting to. Thank you for synthesizing that.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Nordhook?
Yeah, I just, the last time this was done, what was the cost on it?
I don't have that answer for you right now. The process was actually done before I was here. I'd be more than happy to dig that out and provide that for you.
Okay, I think I'd really like to just get some input from the residents up front first before we even went into this, so we knew more what to include.
Well, that was my point earlier, Timmy. When we go through the process of developing the plan, that's when we ask the public what they want in the plan. Because now we're just going for the RFP to do the plan work. And part of the scope of the work is going to be board input and public input. And Thomas suggested including in the stakeholders, teenagers in the township too, to help develop that plan further. Now is really not the time because there isn't a plan. We get the public input as part of the planning process, and then they can say what it is that they like to see in the plan. We don't have a plan yet. It's just an RFP to develop a plan with township resident and board input.
I have a comment on the process and the RFP that we're putting out. Within the scope of work, and this addresses both previous trustee comments, how we put out the RFP indirectly affects, it's a message in what we're asking for. And my concern would be, and I had this as a resident as part of the reason I wanted to become involved, the way it's worded, it's subtle, but it makes a big difference because ultimately we're here to represent residents' best interests and to make sure that the residents' wants and needs are aligned with township staff and all of those doing the work. So our job as the board is to represent residents to the best that we can. It's our duty, and it's just straight, it's just smart. So when you look at how this RFP is written and within the scope of work, it's interesting. First is listening and input, conduct township board and staff input sessions. So staff and board. Second, review the state of all current township planning documents, which shall be a key piece of the township strategic plan. So that strategic plan, according to Manager Swayze, was put in place before he was here. So we're going to first talk to staff and the board. Second, we're going to look and make it a key piece of what we've already had and been going on. And then third in the process, public input. Coordinate and lead a public input process to include all stakeholders of the township. All three are necessary, but I would argue that it's flipped, it's reversed. Public input should be first. I don't want to see a process where public inputs, frankly, like the Tuffy building, public input after the two plans were already in place, or even worse, we want the community to support this and feel like they were heard. We don't want a situation where item number 3, public input, becomes like the former administration building, and you've got frustrated residents, frustrated staff, and frustrated board. So I think it's important to note that public input should be at the front, followed by input from board and staff. And I don't want it to be where we are trapped within whatever the strategic plan has been for many years for any consultant. So I think that's relevant and important.
Well, part of the process, and before having been involved in it, is when we did the last strategic plan, we may find that there were elements in there that weren't accomplished for a particular reason and a good reason. We just review them, and we have in prior plans what we accomplished and whether they're still relevant today with what citizens want to see done. So the fact that I don't think the order makes a difference. You could put, I think, anything in order, but they all are some of the whole. And we have to take each one individually. The fact that we review our previous plan to see if things were met, maybe they weren't, and maybe for good reason. I don't think it matters in which order we take them. They're all going to be a sum of the whole when the plan is completed.
Thank you, Trustee Kessel. And I hear what you're saying. My concern is how it's worded doesn't say that, which shall be a key piece of the township strategic plan. And I don't think
Ben's
that wording
got a
is
comment.
best. Go ahead, Manager Swayze.
Yeah, so my intention was not to list that scope of services in the order that it needed to be completed in. Rather, it was to list the things that are going to be expected in the plan. So I'm happy to reword that area just to make it known that all of those 5 items are equally important, or 6 items are equally important during the process.
Thank you, Manager Swayze. Are there any concerns about reordering? Trustee Nordhook?
I just want one of the first building blocks of this plan to be the people's suggestions and then start building on it.
Thank you. I agree with that. Manager Swayze?
Yeah, so they're also not mutually exclusive either. So I've seen strategic plan models where the first step is where you have a big powwow where you have all your stakeholders. So you're going to have your board members, you're going to have your staff, you're going to have your planning commission members, you're going to have your members of the public, you're going to have your businesses, all of that. And the first half of that powwow is reviewing those existing plans of the township, because it's just important, us as a group already know what's in those plans and live them day in and day out. But a lot of the members of the public don't. So it's an opportunity for them to hear what's in the current master plan, what's in the current Parks and Rec plan as well. So I also want to make sure you guys understand that these probably aren't mutually exclusive steps either. Some of them might happen in combination with each other.
Thank you, Manager Swayze. Is it possible to reword or reorder just to emphasize Trustee Kessel's point, find that balance?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? And on this issue, are there any residents with their hands raised, Assistant Manager Fast?
Yes, there are. Craig Merlin has his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. Merlin?
I want to ask one question, which is back to Supervisor Lesperance's comment at the beginning of the meeting. Is this the board's strategic plan, or is this the township's strategic plan? My hope is that this is the township's strategic plan and that the board implements the wishes of those that elect the board.
Thank you, Mr. Merlin.
By the way, it clearly states Township Board Strategic Plan is what the recommended action is.
Wait, so does that mean, sorry, board?
It reads right here, in the minute, to approve the issuance of the Cascade Charter Township request for proposal for a Township Board Strategic Plan. So it's really both the township and the board.
Okay, is the word board important in there? If we omit it, is there a?
We can take it out. It could be a simple, we can delete that word if you prefer it in the motion.
Any comments or concerns?
No,
from
I
board
move
members?
to approve the issuance of the RFP for the Township Strategic Plan.
Omitting the word board?
Correct.
Thank you, I agree.
Support.
Who is
All
that,
those in
Chipley?
all those in
Yeah,
favor?
well,
Trustee or Clerk Slater, this isn't a roll call, right? So we can just do a regular.
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Anyone opposed? So the strategic plan will be approved, or the RFP, taking into consideration those two edits.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Manager Swayze. Second to last agenda issue, item 004-2021. Consider, and they're similar, Mr. Manager Swayze, you'll walk us through these, but they have to be addressed separately. Consider resolution of acknowledgement of filing and presentation of the special assessment role to the Township Board. Notice of public hearing for the Thornapple River Special Assessment District Number 1. Manager Swayze, can you please walk us through what this means specifically?
Yeah. If this looks familiar to you, it's because this came in front of the board at the last meeting. So this is essentially the third resolution of a 4-resolution process for the special assessment district projects that we've been working on for both the Thornapple River and Laraway Lake. Essentially what this resolution does is transfers the special assessment role, which the supervisor has caused to be created, to the township board. And then the township board sets a public hearing to hear public comment from anybody in the public. Doesn't have to be people that are in the SAD, but typically those are the people that are interested on this proposal. So when we approved this at the last meeting, it had especially the Thornapple River Special Assessment District had a special assessment notice that was almost 15 pages long, because it included the whole special assessment role. When I went to attempt to publish that in the Grand Rapids Press as required by the act, it was going to cost about $10,000. And that's $10,000 that's used to put something in the newspaper and not used to do what the special assessment is going to be designed to do. So I met with our legal counsel that is helping to navigate us through this process. And we came up with a notice that we think meets the intention of the law, helps us save money, and still allows all of the residents to be properly notified about that. So what I'm asking the township board to do is to reapprove the resolution with the new notice and set the public hearing date for 14 days from now, which will be the January 27th, 2021 meeting.
Any motions?
Motion
Shipley
to
makes a
approve.
motion to go forward with this as written.
Was that
I-
Shipley?
I did. I said it first, but go ahead, John. I'll support.
Thank you, Jim.
Manager Swayze, just because this was started with the former board before November. Does the board passing this resolution tonight at all affect who can or cannot be included? I've had some comments or concerns from residents that were accidentally.
Yeah, correct. So this does not have, so basically what you guys have now is a proposed special assessment role in front of you. You guys are not approving the special assessment role. But essentially what the township board is doing tonight is saying, okay, we've received this draft special assessment role. We're going to set this public hearing. We're going to publish the notice in the newspaper and send mailings directly to every single person that appears on that role. And at this public hearing, we're going to accept comment from them on whether they support the role, they don't support the role, they support the program, they don't support the program, any reason why. So the township board has to hold that public hearing. It's part of the process. Once that public hearing is closed, the next step for the board would then be to approve the fourth resolution of the process if they want to have that special assessment be set. So, but there's also the opportunity to tell the staff to go back to the drawing board. You don't want the special assessment role to appear the way it is. You want us to change the assessment role based on some type of uniform criteria. So the board can't, add and remove properties simply because people want to or don't want to be included in the special assessment district. So it has to be some type of uniform requirement, and we would apply that uniform requirement against the proposed parcels and remove people in or out accordingly. But it's probably premature to do any of that work until you've held the public hearing and heard public comment on the proposed special assessment district.
Thank you, Manager Swayze.
No problem.
All those in favor?
No,
It's a roll call.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Clerk Slater. Sorry about that.
Treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz,
Yes.
thank you.
So the agenda item is approved. Item 005-2021, exact same issue with the second special assessment district. So consider resolution of acknowledgement of filing and presentation of the special assessment role to the township board. Notice of public hearing for Laraway Lake Special Assessment District. Any motions?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Who seconded?
Shipley.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any comments or discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Oh, no, I'm sorry, Clerk Slater. Go ahead with the roll call.
Trustee Kessel,
Yes.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
Trustee Shipley,
Yes.
Clerk Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz,
Yes.
thank you.
So that resolution is approved unanimously. Article 11, public comments. Assistant Manager Fast.
Thank
Any
you,
resident would like to make public comments?
Yes, we do have some raised hands. Just one moment. The first individual is Luann.
Okay, go ahead. When you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Your
Okay.
voice sounds,
This is actually Luann's husband. I live at 7474 Alaska Ridge on the Thornapple River. I just had a quick, simple question about the special assessment. Is the hearing on the 27th, or what's on the 27th?
Manager Swayze, can you help with this one?
Exactly. Yes, that's correct. So the public hearing will be on the 27th. So the notice will be published in the newspaper. If your property is listed in the special assessment, you'll actually get a direct mailing from us with all the details of that public hearing as well. So the 27th will be the public hearing with the Township Board.
Okay, and that'll be a Zoom meeting just like this?
That is correct.
Okay, and they are still putting it in the Grand Rapids Press, or what paper, for $10,000, or are you just doing the direct mailing?
So the process that's set by the state requires us to publish it in the newspaper. But what we did was significantly reduced the size of the notice so that it would reduce the cost.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments, Assistant Manager Best?
Yes, ma'am. We also have Keely.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Gosh, a couple of questions, and I think, well, I actually spoke with Manager Swayze at the end of October regarding this. Can you explain why you are, well, a couple of questions. And is it true that you passed $15,000 to complete the Wisner Center upgrade so that you could be holding in-person meetings as well as these Zoom meetings?
Manager Swayze,
Yeah, so the Township Board approved expenditure of $15,000 to upgrade the camera systems at the Wisner Center so that when we're able to get back in person based on the state laws, that we'll be able to do that and hold hybrid meetings.
Are you saying that the state law is prohibiting that right now?
Manager Swayze, can you address that, and also wraps into what's the status with the state's recommendation as far as what we are allowed to do within the township, or what discretion we have?
All townships in Michigan have received notice from legal counsel at the Michigan Township Association that as of right now, based on the Public Health Department's executive orders, we cannot meet in-person for our meetings.
When would that be revisited? Sorry, excuse me.
My understanding with what the governor talked about today is that it would be February 1st.
Oh, okay, no longer the 15th?
Correct.
I just have a follow-up question because oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry
Thanks for
about that.
sticking to no, that's right. Go ahead. Thanks for the time limit.
Sorry, Grace. Thank you. When I spoke with you in October, you indicated that it was your recommendation to hold the meetings virtually as opposed to both. And so that's not the case anymore? You're saying it's actually illegal to hold the township meetings in person now?
Manager Swayze, sorry, this is to the best of your ability. I'll direct that one to you.
Yep. So, at one point, the executive orders weren't written in the way they are now. That changed kind of in the November timeframe. And when the Public Health Department put out that notice, that's when the Michigan Township Association also put out their notice about their interpretations of the executive orders.
And didn't they say that you could continue to hold meetings virtually until the 31st of March? Excuse me. Or is that changed too?
Nope, so that hasn't changed. That's part of the changes to the Open Meetings Act that was passed by the legislature. But a point of clarification, the ability to hold virtual meetings is in the Open Meeting Act and can be done basically for any reason through March 31st. There's no indication in the Open Meetings Act that you have to hold virtual meetings. The idea that we have to hold virtual meetings comes from the executive orders issued out of the Public Health Department.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I would
And
just
maybe-
like to share as a resident that this format is extremely frustrating and our voices are not heard. We're not able to gather and have public discourse together, which is really important in the setting. And I think we've all seen how it ran tonight. So I would really just encourage you to seriously look at that as a resident. And I've heard that from many other residents who simply are concerned. I have one more question, and I'm wondering if it is also mandated or illegal for you to open up the Cascade Township offices. I went to pay my taxes and was met by a literal blockade with a table.
Ms. Shea, Manager Swayze, you walk through this. It's a general question about what the status is now and moving forward that's helpful to residents. I've gotten that a couple times from people in the parking lot.
I will mention that we're not closed to the public. We're closed to walk-in traffic. We are really encouraging residents to reach out to us beforehand. A lot of the transactions that they would like to do can be done virtually. But I've given all of the staff the opportunity to set up meetings individually with residents if we do need to meet with them individually. So just want to say that no, we are not closed to the public. We're simply closed to walk-in traffic right now. And we offer all of the services that we always offer with the exception of the passport office. Passport office is closed right now and will be until a time where we're able to figure out a safe process to go through that.
Thank you,
And
Manager
again, is that your recommendation, or is that because it really looks like you're closed when you come into the building? And so
Ms. Shea, we will look into that and I'll talk about that, or we will discuss that with the Manager Swayze and other township staff, because I hear your concerns and you're not the only person.
Especially,
we can contact after off the.
Sorry, this is Molly Miller again, but especially for our older population, I think it's unfair to not have the door open. Everybody can wear a mask. It is not a problem at all to be able to enter a facility. Banks are open, grocery stores are open. So I really think that this needs to be something that you all need to talk about. That is ridiculous.
Manager Swayze, what happens if if a resident shows up at the township office?
Yep, so we have somebody staffed at our front desk at all time. If it's clear that they need help, we have a bell out there. We've had people knock on the doors. The people from the front desk go up and greet those people and start that conversation about do they need some type of in-person help? Is it something that they might be able to do remotely? And we service those people the best we can at that time. Part of the problem is that the executive order from the Michigan Health Department also requires that all work that can be done remotely be done so. So we have limited staffing in Township Hall every day. A lot of our workers that can do their work remotely are doing so now. So sometimes when people just walk in, the person we actually need to connect them with, they're going to have to call or email anyways.
Thank you. Manager Swayze, are all offices of the township, all departments open regular 9 to 5 hours?
Yes, they're open 9 to 5 hours. And again, we're just recommending encouraging as much as we can for people to reach out to the township beforehand, whether it be by email or telephone. Again, we will try to do those transactions remotely if possible. And if we can't, we're more than happy to set up a meeting with any resident that needs that.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, yes, thank you.
The Treasurer's Department never turns down tax payments.
Good one.
We do
Thank
have
you.
another public comment, Supervisor Lesperance.
Okay, go ahead.
Craig Merlin has his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. Merlin, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
I had one question before. I just want to follow up. Even when you go to in-person meetings, you will still have a hybrid capability, because some of us who are at risk categories don't really want to be in an enclosed space with lots of people.
Yes, that's accurate. We do.
Okay, and the
And
second question is, what was the vote on the consent agenda? I heard 3 yeas and then I heard nothing other than that.
Clerk Slater, what do you have for that? I didn't keep track.
It was approved unanimously with the change that we made to one item. I don't remember what it was.
It was the one item was Trustee Nordhook's
Right.
vote.
Right.
But I didn't hear the unanimous, I didn't see hands going up or voices saying yay.
Well, everyone said yes. Everyone, it's hard on Zoom, but we didn't hear any no's. So everyone said yes, as far as I'm concerned.
Full disclosure, I may not have, so I will, if you need to formalize that, I can be louder.
We
Any
do have
other-
another raised hand, Supervisor Lesperance.
Okay. Oh, go ahead whenever.
It's Scott Ricci.
Okay, Mr. Rizzi?
Good evening. I just thought I would point out that when you guys were talking about minutes earlier in the meeting, I thought I'd take a minute and browse some neighboring townships. And I looked at the minutes for Ada Township, and their board meetings, they make no reference to public comment other than to just say there were comments from the public. They don't say what they were or who they were from. I looked at Lowell Township, and they show a name and a brief, I guess I would say one line or sentence of the comment. So I just thought I'd throw that out there since you guys were talking about that earlier. I thought maybe you'd benefit from that. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Rizzi, as current chair of the Planning Commission, how does the Planning Commission do it?
Well, it's interesting you ask about that. When I got on the Planning Commission a few years back, and I was secretary, some of you may recall I was a little particular about how the minutes were brief. And I felt that they needed to be more detailed at the Planning Commission level. And they are, I think they are, they are much more detailed at that level, because obviously we're talking about matters that need to be looked up later. My understanding is, from what I have been told through staff and also from other municipalities, that at the board level, they typically just record actions and resolutions. But at the Planning Commission level, minutes are usually more reflective of what's discussed. So that's what I have, that's just my opinion. I think writing down comments from citizens is always a good idea, and I like it because in 10 years, when you look something up, it's nice to have that background conversation. But I also understand the process that the MTA recommends as well. So it looks like it's up to you guys on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzi. Mr. Nordhook, Trustee Nordhook?
On the minutes, I'm just saying, because we don't we're not required to take it to a level 10, doesn't mean we can't. That's all my comment.
Thank you, Trustee Norhuck. Any other comments?
There are no other raised hands, Supervisor Lesperance.
Thank you. Article 12, Manager Swayze, any comments you would like to make at this time?
So my big pitch today was going to be part of what I answered in the public comment section about Township Hall continuing to be open, but closed to walk-in traffic. I already addressed that, so I won't go back on that. Wanted to talk about the governor's update today, and that we'll need to continue to remote meetings until February 1st at a minimum. So I won't go over that again. So the only other thing that I wanted to go over was that a couple of meetings ago, the Township Board approved our resolution of intent to create a brownfield authority, and Supervisor Lesperance and myself and Economic Development Director Corhorn are going through that process. One of the things that's going to require is the appointment of a board of a BRA board, which is really our next step. So we're kind of working through what the recommendations on those appointments would be. We're also working with the developer in the community who would like to utilize the brownfield program to potentially get a loan from Eagle as well. So it's just been a while since we had revisited that. I wanted to let you guys know that that process is still going, and you guys should expect to see some action items on the brownfield authority appointments and the plan either in our late January or early February meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll turn to board comments.
Call on people.
Oh, anyone with any one
Jeff
of their
has
hands?
something to say.
Please go ahead.
Well, as always, I want to thank everybody that attended this meeting. Luann's husband, Keely, Craig, your input's important to us, and we want to hear from you. And I hope that you keep coming back to our meetings and giving us your 2 bits worth of what you think we should be doing. That's all I have to say. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. Trustee Kessel?
Ben, to Mr. Merlin's comment about when we can meet in public and those who might want to attend and can't because of COVID and concerns, are we going to be able to Zoom live our meetings and meet in public or not?
So we're definitely going to have the ability to do that from a technical standpoint. What will have to happen is the Township Board will have to have a conversation about exactly what you do and do not want to do. And there'll be some limitations based on the Open Meetings Act. So for example, at some point, we'll go back to meeting entirely in the board. We'll go back to attending the meeting entirely in public based on the current Open Meetings Act, because absent of the pandemic or being deployed overseas, you won't be able to attend a meeting virtually anymore without a change in the Open Meetings Act. So the board itself would have to be there in person, but there'd be the opportunity, if the board chose, to provide a virtual environment for if people wanted to watch or attend remotely. You'll have to make a decision if you want to take comments remotely, if you don't want to take comments remotely. So there'll really be the opportunity for you guys to design what the meetings are going to look like going forward, and the technical capability to really do a lot of the things that might help improve those communications with our township residents.
I didn't hear what the governor said today, but did she restrict the gatherings of number of people after February 1st?
No, so all she did was extend the current restrictions, which limits indoor meetings to 10 or less people.
And that's part of the reason we have not been able to hold them public meetings, because we in fact then would have been in violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Not the Open Meetings Act, we would have been in violation of the Public Health Department's emergency order for public safety.
Well, Opens Meetings says anybody can come, right?
Correct, yes.
and we couldn't allow more than 10 or 15.
Correct.
What about the way the board is set up in the Wisner Center? Are we going to be able to configure it such? I know we had this conversation before that we can have the social distancing and still have access to our monitors and everything else.
I don't have an answer for you on that at this point.
Don't we have to reconfigure somehow to be 6 feet apart?
It's going to depend what the next iteration of the order looks like. So there's certainly
Okay.
enough space in the Wisner Center. The computers aren't mobile, so we may have to spread out to tables and use laptops or something like that.
Okay.
So we have the space. I'm not planning on putting too much emphasis on that until I know exactly what the next executive order is going to look like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from board members? Okay. I'd just like to add, thank Deputy Dieppe and also Mr. Yazarski, who came tonight, commented on important issues. Also, I'd like to address briefly the PFAS issue for certain neighborhoods. Manager Swayze and I have a meeting tomorrow with the Western Michigan Eagle representatives, and then the following week with State Representative Thomas Albert and also the County Commissioner Mandy Bolter's office to talk about how best we can get as much money as possible from the state and federal authorities, but also move forward as quickly as we can. So it wasn't on this item, but I want residents to know that we're doing everything we can on our end. I'd also like to thank Jim McDonald in the Building and Grounds Department, as well as the people that work with him. He did a fantastic job this week for a family that lost one and was put in a tricky spot coordinating cemetery issues. And I just want to thank him for his dedication to residents and really follow through and ownership. He kind of saved the day. So thank you, Mr. McDonald, and also the Building and Grounds staff. Lastly, just as far as minutes go, I think as we continue to work on what's best in balancing how we produce minutes in the clerk's office, also how we hold them, I think it's important that the board errs on the side of transparency and working with residents, complies with the Open Meeting Act as far as when the minutes are required to be released following the meetings. And I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Next
Ken,
item.
we always leave it for you.
Any other issues, items, concerns?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Nay. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.